From becoming the greatest three-point shooter of all time to popularizing small ball in the entire league, here's how Steph Curry has revolutionized the NBA. For starters, being the greatest three-point scorer definitely helped. Sure, the NBA had noticed the impact of sharpshooters before Curry came along, but his consistency showed everyone how effective a three-point shooter can be. On paper, it sounded like the perfect plan, filling your guards department with players who can consistently make the shots from the range. But it wasn't until Steph showed how it was possible in reality, on the court, in NBA games, that the world actually bought into it. No one else has managed this type of consistency, and even though teams have loaded up on marksmen, no one ever will replicate what Steph did. And this revolution was only possible due to his elite skill set. He's broken the record for most made three-pointers, and he's still got a major part of his career left. It's insane to imagine how many three-pointers he'll end with. But what you do know is that no one's breaking his record. Only 3 players in NBA history have ever made 300 or more three-pointers in a season. Steph, on the other hand, has done it regularly and has even crossed the impossible 400 mark on one occasion. There are no doubts about his efficiency and ability. And so, there's no argument to be made over who the greatest three-point shooter is. It's definitely Steph Curry. Although his Splash brother would have challenged him for that title, if not for injuries. But now, Curry's left Klay Thompson well behind. More importantly, though, he's also blazed the trail for the rest of the NBA to follow. Like I said before, becoming as efficient as Steph may not be possible, but that hasn't stopped teams from finding the next best thing. There's a whole host of young talent pouring in the draft every year. These young players look nothing like your traditional basketball player from 2 decades ago. It's very similar to what Steph's profile was when he came in, and the reason why he was ignored in his draft class until the Warriors finally took a chance on him. People used to say how fans wouldn't recognize Steph in a supermarket if they didn't already know him. Of course, that doesn't hold anymore. He's one of the most well-known NBA stars in the world at this point. Before these young stars make a name for themselves like Steph, they'll also be relatively unknown to the layman. But it's a massive difference from a couple of decades ago, when you could spot a basketball player from a mile away. But similar to Michael Jordan and LeBron James after him, Steph Curry's influencing a whole new generation of starlets. For very long, basketball was a game gate kept by tall players well over 6'5" and more. At best, a shorter profile had a chance of making it only if they had extraordinary handles. That's not the case anymore. If you can consistently splash the net from beyond the arc, it doesn't matter how tall you are, you have a chance to make it big. Call me crazy, but that's mostly because of Steph. He's given hope to the modern generation that anyone can play basketball. It's a massive change. When in the past, fans wanted to master the skyhook of Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, or they wanted to play the game like Mike did, or do what Allen Iverson did, we've all been there, haven't we? Now we see young kids practicing their three-point shots. They want to make that splash from way out like Curry. It's incredible. As much impact as this approach has had on the grassroots, it's also made a lot of noise at the top. Think of it in NFL terms. Franchises are always on the lookout for agile and strong quarterbacks in the draft. Similar to that, there's a lot of value in bringing in someone who can consistently make three-point shots. Teams have realized that there's more than just one way of winning a basketball game, and more importantly, a championship. The early 2000s, for instance, were known for how Big Shaq changed the game of basketball. His domination was so much that franchises went all out looking for massive-sized centers who can dunk and block for fun. It's very difficult, but there's still a chance that you can defend those monsters, right? You can put another big man on them or cause enough hindrance and you're golden. Then there was also the injury factor. These 7-foot giants were a little too injury-prone. Of course, when you're that tall and playing a game like basketball, the risk of injury is very high. But Steph's way is not only effective, it's also not a risk in terms of health. These guards are normal-sized athletes. More importantly, there's no stopping a genuine shooter. Think about it. Put the best version of Drew Holiday or Marcus Smart on Steph Curry, but if Curry's feeling it and catches a hot streak, there's absolutely no stopping him. What's the game plan? How do you stop someone who is shooting from beyond the arc? You don't. You just hope they miss. No wonder every NBA team wants a three-point shooter, and it has become a need in modern-age basketball. Can you name a single team in the NBA right now that does not employ a marksman? This season, the Lakers didn't have one, and they struggled to make it out of the lottery. Then on trade deadline, they traded away a former MVP, Russell Westbrook, to bring in Malik Beasley, and it was such an important move. It gave the Lakers a proper shooter on their team. All this is because of Steph Curry, folks. He's made such a major impact with his greatness. Teams can't consistently win without three-point shooting anymore. Every franchise realizes this, and they want to target the best shooters in the drafts every year while making major changes to their roster to accommodate them. It's the way to go now. Even the biggest players in the world need to have that skill to be successful. Take Victor Wembanyama, for instance. He's been called a unicorn and whatnot, but we've seen other 7'3" players and taller in the NBA before. What makes him so different? Well, it's his ability to dribble like a point guard, and making consistent shots from beyond the arc make him so unique. Look at LeBron James. He was averaging under 32% from the three-point range in his first 5 seasons, and he didn't need to improve his shooting. He did anyway, and has become even more dangerous. As a result, LeBron's shooting more than 36% in his last 15 years in the NBA. So, if you're making the greatest player of all time change the way he plays, you're definitely a revolutionary. But it's not just Steph's three-point shooting. It's the way the Warriors went small due to his abilities that have proven to be a turning point in the NBA. They weren't the first team to go small in the NBA. The Phoenix Suns and the Miami Heat experimented with that approach in the 2000s. The Rockets also went all in on small ball in the 2019-2020 season recently, but it's the Golden State Warriors who made it popular and perfected the small ball style of play. In fact, they showed the NBA that you could actually win championships with this approach. 4 championships is no joke. A 73-win regular season is definitely no joke, especially when you consider how no other NBA team has managed more wins in a regular season. This approach isn't just reliant on their fantastic shooting prowess, though. It's the defense. It's the way they keep on switching and repeatedly disrupt their opponent's offensive sets that makes them so unplayable. Steph's brilliant ability off the ball allowed the Warriors to be more flexible in their approach. Defenders often talk about how much of a menace Steph is off the ball. It goes to show that three-point shooting isn't his only forte. It's also his ability to destroy the opponent's gameplay due to his persistent movement. Madness! In fact, the Warriors' success has forced the league to adopt it too, and now small ball is a dominant strategy in the NBA. Steph Curry, along with Steve Kerr, are both responsible for this. They've created a ripple effect on the rest of the NBA. Teams have been copying the Warriors' style of play, especially during games, for a couple of quarters, if not completely, and mixing it up with their preferred style of play. But overall, if you were to compare basketball from the 2020s to how it was played in the early 2000s, you'd see a major difference. It's become so much quicker, perimeter-oriented, and with more teams adopting small ball lineups than ever before. The traditional post-up offense and physicality isn't that common anymore, and even teams that have dominant centers prefer to play small ball against certain oppositions. And almost every team has a guard in the same ilk as Curry. Look at Trae Young, Luka Doncic, Damian Lillard. They've all found so much success due to their three-point shooting and off-ball play. Steph's not only revolutionized what it means to be a point guard in the NBA, but he's also changed how the NBA franchises choose to play. So, from popularizing small ball in the NBA to becoming the greatest three-point shooter of all time, this was how Steph Curry has revolutionized the NBA.